Well, folks, we had some pretty unfortunate news this morning regarding Bandai Amco, as it seems as though they are laying off a ton of their workforce and are canceling several games, including a One Piece game, a Naruto game, as well as a project with Nintendo. Let's talk about it. Alrighty, folks, good Tuesday evening. I'm a little bit late on this one. I apologize. However, it came out this morning from Bloomberg, and I decided, you know what, I should still cover this because this is pretty major news. Even outside of just the Nintendo aspect, seeing the cancellation of a One Piece and a Naruto game is a pretty big deal. Very unfortunate for me, as I love my anime games, I love my Naruto games, but I do want to talk about this because it is really just unfortunate news. Of course, my thoughts are with all of the employees and everything that are being laid off because that is just horrible, and it seems like this is just another case of AAA mismanagement where Banon Amco had that big AAA free-to-play anime game called Blue Protocol, and that got canceled before it could even get localized. So I think that's where a lot of this is probably coming from. They have made some major missteps when it comes to their bigger IP, but also it's surprising to see something like this from a Japanese company. Normally we're hearing these stories from Western companies, and we kind of expect it from them almost at this point, but Bandai Amco is a very prolific Japanese developer. They don't make the biggest budget games, and when they do have a big budget game under their publishing label, it's Elden Ring. So the fact that this happened at all is pretty surprising, I would say, but we're going to read it from Video Games Chronicle here. Of course, they are corroborating Bloomberg. They say here, quotes, Bandon Amco is reportedly reducing its workforce and has canceled several titles, including games featuring the One Piece and Naruto licenses, as well as a contract project with Nintendo. According to Bloomberg, citing sources familiar with the matter, the company is, quote, taking a traditionally Japanese approach to reducing staff and sending workers to rooms where they are given nothing to do, putting pressure on them to leave voluntarily. That is awful. What an awful way to do that. I guess on the one hand, they're still getting paid, and if they kind of know what's going on, they have that opportunity to start looking for another job. They're not just immediately, the band is not being ripped off immediately, but also that's just such a scummy way to do that. Like, that just does not sound good. But reading on here, they say Bandai Amco Studios has reportedly moved 200 workers to such rooms, leading to almost 100 resignations. A representative of Bandai Amco told Bloomberg, quotes, our decisions to discontinue games are based on comprehensive assessments of the situation. Some employees may need to wait a certain amount of time before they are assigned their next project, but we do move forward with assignments as new projects emerge. There is no organization like an Oidashi Beya at Bandai Amco Studios designed to pressure people to leave voluntarily. Oidashi Beya is a practice used by Japanese corporations to isolate employees by giving them no tasks in an effort to get them to leave out of their own volition, rather than be let go and receive severance. And then VGC closes here by saying Bandai Namco's latest release, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, has seen strong initial sales. The game, developed by Spike Chunsoft, surpassed a total of 3 million units sold in 24 hours after its launch, according to the publisher, which I believe makes it the fastest selling fighting game of all time. That is huge numbers for an anime fighting game, a fighting game of any type. So that is absolutely massive, and I think that's probably why. I think this is kind of just trying to be brushed under the rug because of how successful Sparking Zero is. Like, hey, look at how good this is doing. Look how good this game is. Also, we're doing all this really scummy stuff with our employees, and we're canceling all these games, which is just, it's definitely, like, scummy, right? And then, yeah, there isn't much more information on the actual canceled projects given, but reading from Bloomberg here, the initial source, they say, over the summer, the company further shuttered a smartphone game at Tales of the Rays. I've never even heard of that. And said it would take down big-budget online game Blue Protocol in January. It's also decided to cancel or pause development of several games, including ones that feature characters from animes Naruto and One Piece, as well as a project commissioned by Nintendo. So that's really all the information on these canceled projects we have. Now, I want to say once again, before we talk about canceled video games, what is happening to the employees at Bandai Amco is far worse than us not getting a video game. So, thoughts are with them. Hopefully, they land on their feet. Hopefully, they're able to find, other work somewhere else. Scummy stuff all around, but let's talk about these canceled games. So, first up, a Naruto and One Piece game got canceled. That sucks. Naruto games aren't exactly the most plentiful these days. I have to wonder if that One Piece game was a sequel to One Piece Odyssey from Ilka, or if it was something else entirely. I kind of think it was probably something else entirely, because I think One Piece Odyssey did pretty decent, actually. So I bet One Piece Odyssey is getting a sequel, but then whatever this canceled One Piece game is going to be some other game that we just never hear about. Maybe a Burning Blood sequel, or maybe a more traditional 2D fighter, or something else entirely. There's a lot of variety when it comes to One Piece games. Maybe it's a Pirate Warriors game, that kind of thing. And then Naruto, that really sucks. I assume the sales of Storm Connections late last year were not very good, or at least not up to what they expected it to be, considering how good the Naruto Storm series has done in the past. But that's really a huge shame, because Naruto, of course, not in its prime anymore. I would have loved to see more takes on Naruto games. Shinobi Striker is a fantastic game. I would have loved to, maybe not a sequel to that, because that game's still getting supported, but something new, something new entirely for the Naruto gameverse. We haven't really had anything different from Storm and Shinobi Striker. outside of that, I mean, honestly, probably back to the DS and Wii, right? So something new, like maybe like a story-focused game on Naruto, kind of like GBZ Kakarot, that would have been really cool. But alas, anime games canceled. That is very unfortunate. But the bigger news here, I think, for most of us, is that a project commissioned by Nintendo has been canceled. Now, we unfortunately have like really nothing to kind of nail down what this could be. If you have been following the situation with Bandon Amco, they put up job hirings, I believe, early last year for a 3D action game. 3D action remaster, I believe, is what the word going around the street was. And people kind of deduced, like, okay, what would Bandon Amco be remastering? It's a 3D action game from Nintendo. What would they be doing? And I think for a lot of people, maybe it's copium, but a lot of people kind of had the consensus that it might be Kid Icarus Uprising. That is something that Nintendo would definitely outsource, right? Like, Sakurai's not going to be hands-on with a Kid Icarus Uprising remaster. He's just not going to do that. He would make a sequel maybe, but not a remaster. So the idea, the hopium, was that they were doing Kid Icarus Uprising for Switch. And I think, honestly, maybe it was like a Star Fox game or something, but I think that is probably the likeliest scenario, because that's also a game that you can see them canceling. Kid Icarus Uprising, as good as it is, and as much as we all love it as fans of Nintendo, and as good as the reviews were for it, it did not do very well. I think it sold just over 1 million copies, which like isn't horrible for a new take on this ancient IP that no one had really played before on the 3DS, right? It's not awful, but it's also not like light the sales charts on fire good, right? Like, so hearing that they canceled it tells me it's not that big of like a seller, right? Like, we could assume Bandon Amco will be working on the next Smash Bros. Game and the next Mario Kart game like they did with 8. We can assume they will probably make like a Mario sports game with the new Studio 2, Studio S stuff going on there. But I think all of those projects are going to be safe because Nintendo needs those projects. They don't need something like a Kid Icarus Uprising. Maybe it was a Star Fox game, like a Star Fox Assault or Adventures remaster or something, right? But they don't need that. They need Mario Kart. They need Smash Bros. They kind of need Mario Sports even. Kid Icarus Uprising, though, that's not really a big enough deal for them to take in-house. And I guess that's another aspect of this that could be true, right? It's possible that maybe it was far enough along that Nintendo will take the rest of it in-house or take it to another developer and just kind of have them finish it up. I think that might be optimistic, unfortunately. But, I mean, that's the best-case scenario, I guess, is that Nintendo still finishes up the project. I'm not sure how many times we've really seen that happening, especially if they're like taking assets and development time done on the current like version of it and just continuing from there. I know we heard back in 2017 that the rumor was that Bandai Namco Singapore was doing Metroid Prime 4, and then that got canceled and they rebooted and started from scratch in 2019 with Retro Studios. So this isn't the first time that a Bandai Namco Nintendo game has been canceled or put on hold or whatever. So maybe whatever it was, we could still see later down the line, but I think it'll be a while, probably. And I do think, ultimately, it probably was Kid Icarus Uprising, because I really think that just makes the most sense for what it could have been. But also, if it's just a remaster, like if that's what we're talking about here, Bloomberg does not say that it was a remaster, but that is what we are assuming based on the job listings. If it was just a remaster, it probably wouldn't have taken that long, so maybe it was a new game. I don't know, man. It is unfortunate. I also was thinking about Xenosaga, because with all of the story hints and small things going on in Future Redeemed and Xenoblade 3 as a whole, I believe Xenosaga itself and Bandai Namco was like in the copyright for Future Redeemed's credits, if I'm not mistaken. Xenosaga's happening. I am convinced Xenosaga will come back at some point, specifically on Nintendo platforms. I think it will be a Switch exclusive or Switch 2 exclusive. It could have been that, you know? I think that could also fall under the 3D action game kind of title that job listing had. That is definitely possible. That is a 3D game. That is action in ways, you know, kind of a loose interpretation there. But Xenosaga could also make sense for whatever this game was. And that is another game that, like, while yes, fans would love it, fans want to see that, we've been begging it for years, it's not something that's really going to light the sales charts on fire, right? Like, it will not do as good as any of the Xenoblade games have done because it's a PS2 remake or a remaster. So I think those are the highest likelihood of what this was. It was either Kid Icarus Uprising or it was Xenosaga. That's just my speculation, though. We don't know that for certain, and I hope we still see those projects later on. If it was either of those, maybe we still see them later down the line. I mean, now that Nintendo has, Forever Entertainment, they're doing the Donkey Kong Country Returns remaster, which is kind of a 3DS game, but also a Wii game. We have Tantalus. They did a Dark Moon HD or Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. They're clearly, like, it feels to me that they're in their 3DS era now of remaking games and remastering them and bringing them to the Switch. So I feel like Kid Icarus Uprising is still going to happen. It just might be a little bit later down the line than we were hoping and expecting. And then as for Xenosaga, with all of the stuff, like I said, with all of the stuff in Future Redeemed, I feel like that also just has to happen eventually. I don't know if they would do the full trilogy at once, right? Maybe it would just be the first game, maybe the first 2 games or something. I would like if they did all 3 at once. I guess it depends on what scale the remastering is or the remake. If it's just a simple remaster, yeah, give us all 3 at once. But if it's a full remake of them, you probably only get the first game for $60, and then they eke them out over the course of the Switch 2 generation. But I really hope that we see these games eventually. Of course, like I said at the top of the video, obviously, we can talk and be sad about canceled games. What is happening to the employees at Bandon Amco, way worse. So my thoughts are with them. Hopefully it all gets sorted out and they can find more work after the scummy business practice of having them sit in rooms to willingly quit so they don't get severance. But interesting stuff. And also possibly one less game that we would see, probably not next year. Like, this probably wouldn't have been a 2025 game if it was early enough to still be canceled. But if it was a remaster of one of those games, this could have been like a 2026 game, maybe 2027 at the latest. So this will be one less game that we have in 2026, you know? If there's like an interesting gap in 2026 on Switch 2 or even on Switch, we're going to know like, okay, well, there was a Bandon Amco game that was probably supposed to come out here, which is going to be kind of interesting to see if we can kind of pinpoint when that would have been. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you think this game could have actually been? Like I said, my money is on Kid Icarus or Xenosaga, maybe a Star Fox game. I think Star Fox maybe could make sense here, but it also could be something else entirely. I mean, like I said, the Bloomberg article doesn't mention a remaster. I'm just basing that off of the 3D action remaster that we heard about, what, like a year or 2 ago at this point. So I guess it really could be anything, but I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Of course, I'm mourning the loss of a Naruto game right now because we really don't get many of those, and I really would have liked another Naruto game, but it's fine. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Of course, subscribe here for Nintendo Switch news, reviews, discussions, all that fun stuff. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames. Check out my other channel at It's Amiibo. Posted another video over there this morning, so go check out that. And until next time, folks, peace.